human beings engage in this process, this psychological form of denial, because risk means worry and fear and threats and anxieties. And we don't want to think about those things because it truly is uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable is not anything that anyone ever wants to do for any reason. And if there's fear and worry and upset, that is truly a human thing. And security is that. It is fear and upset and worry.
Hello everyone, this is your host Manoj Tandon. Welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security's Security Confidential. We have a rock star guest today, but before I announce him, you all need to hit the damn like and subscribe button, because that's the way the shit works. So just hit it. Otherwise, we can't keep bringing you this content. So show us a little love and just hit that button. Now, without further ado, would like to introduce you to someone who really doesn't need much of an introduction, especially if any of you guys have watched television in recent times, and you might have caught him on CNN, on Fox News, on the Today Show, to name a few places. But he is gracing us with his presence today. He is Robert Siciliano. He is the CEO of Protect Now, LLC. He's got well over 30 years of experience in protecting people and organizations from fraud, social engineering, and cybercrime. He is known for closing the human blind spot, which we're going to get to. He's the author of several books, a certified speaking professional, many appearances out there, and he's all over the place. Robert, thank you so much for honoring us by being on the show today.
It is an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
So, Robert, we got it, on CNN and Fox, we get sound bites. We'd like to get a little bit more than that. And understand, how did you start in this? Was this gig always what you wanted to do, or was this just a happenstance?
My path is different than most. Every time I get off the platform, someone says, so what are you, like former law enforcement, military, government, CIA? Like, well, what's your background? Man, I am from the streets of Boston. Like, that is literally my background. Okay. I started off like physically on the streets of Boston at the age of 12. It goes way back. My dad let my little brother and I head into town and do some shopping for Michael's, birthday. And we get off the train and there's 5 kids at the top of the platform waiting for me or waiting for anybody. And they mugged us. They beat me up and they took my money. Yeah, and I was not prepared for that, of course, at all, right? So I go home a little bit of beaten and bloodied, and my dad explained to me, oh, yeah, they are the wolves, and you and your brother, well, today you are the rabbits. They're predators, and you're prey. And I was like, I didn't quite get it at the time. And then a little over a year later, I was at summer camp, and kids go to camp, right? And I met a girl. She was my first crush. And we get off, we kind of liked each other. And we get off the bus one day. We went to her house. We're sitting on her front stairs. And she's kind of looking all solemn, a little upset. And she says to me, I think you should know, I wanted you to know that, my mother's boyfriend assaulted me. And I didn't really truly understand what it was that she was talking about. I just knew that it was bad, right? So I go home and I asked my dad, I'm like, Dad, like, what is rape? Because I didn't know what she was talking about. Like, look, we're talking, I'm 57. This was like 46, 47 years, like 45 years ago. We didn't have those conversations. Kids didn't know about that stuff back then. Like,
they did not.
At all. No,
we had no internet. We had 3 channels on TV, and that was about it.
That was it. Okay. And so I learned about the birds and the bees and sexual assault in the same conversation. So for me, my understanding of the world at that age was different than the kids my age. And so I felt that it was necessary for me to understand that more, but not just from that standpoint. I wanted to know how to protect people. Like, protecting women became a thing for me. Like, when I understood truly what happened to her, it was devastating. And so from that point on, I started to take self-defense, teach self-defense. And by my late teens, I was teaching real estate agents personal protection. Wow. By my mid-20s, I had a full-fledged business teaching realtor safety, because realtors are murdered in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
Even today?
today. Vacant houses, meth addicts, breaking into houses and squatting, stripping the place of copper. The agent walks in and she, things happen. And so between, the physical aspects of realtor safety and, the fact that they handle a lot of sensitive data, I've been speaking to them for 30 plus years. So that said, in the mid 90s, my small business that I was running, managing for teaching agent safety, I was selling product, pepper sprays, stun guns, books, and videos on personal protection. I had, merchant status, which is the ability to accept credit cards from my my IBM PS1 consultant, which was the make and model of my Windows 3.0 machine that had a 150 megabyte hard drive, right?
Wow, you splurged on that thing. That would have been an expensive machine back then.
Yeah. And, and so, and I had a dial-up connection to AOL, right? And I got hacked in the mid 90s. And I didn't know that hacked was a word. I didn't know hackers or black hat was a thing. And when that happened, I lost thousands of dollars in credit card fraud. And so this is mid 90s. And I'm like, my business was personal protection, which is teaching to prevent physical harm and theft. And so when I was stolen from in that way, it meant something more, because how do you get robbed on the internet? Right. And so I wanted to understand how that happened. As upset as I was enamored. Like, I was amazed that they could do what they did. And I wanted to understand how they did it, A, so I could protect myself so it didn't happen again. B, because if this is happening to me, who else is it happening to? And so from that point on in the mid 90s, I started to see the evolution of hacking, government agencies being infiltrated, social security numbers being exfiltrated, identity theft becoming a real thing. There wasn't even laws on the books in the mid 90s making identity theft a crime. And the Identity Theft Assumption and Deterrence Act of 1998 made it a crime. And I started to see victims all around me. And so from the mid to late 90s, personal protection to me meant a lot more than physical security. It was now information. It was the information world.
Yeah. And that got you into cyber. That's a great story. I mean, and almost everyone that's in this field, Robert, has their own unique story of how they got here. Very rarely do we see the traditional, someone went to college for computer science and then got into cybersecurity. There's a couple of those, but by and large, people have entered this field from various different angles. And it's really, and that's why you have such a passion for the damn thing, because you're driven by what's your own experiences and what you've seen. And that is very important.
And, not much has changed in regards to us as consumers, as citizens, as employees, as frontline employees, meaning like what has changed is, criminals, people always say, cyber criminals are so sophisticated. I'm like, well, I think they're more just organized. They treat crime as a business, right? But you and I, like consumers, we haven't changed in regards to what security is. Like, we don't look at security effectively. We don't look at risk management effectively. And so therefore, we have not evolved with the times as far as managing risk in our own personal or professional lives, for that matter. But the criminals have. They look at security as a business.
Absolutely, they do, and they're getting more and more efficient with it. And we're going to get into that here in a second. But I'm curious here. Have you ever gone on the dark web searching for people's social security numbers? Is there anybody in the United States whose social security number is not available?
I've had criminal hackers email me my social security number. Hey, security guy, here's your social, ha. Basically flexing their muscles, showing me how cool they are. I get people call me all the time, freaking out. My financial advisor, hey, Equifax told me that my information's in the dark web. I'm like, yeah, well, the sky is blue, water is wet, your information is on the dark web. Like, that's just the way it is. And so what I instruct people is like, yeah, your information is out there. The idea is to essentially make the data useless to the thief. And so I ask questions like, how would you make a, password useless to a thief? Well, answers usually are change it. Okay, how else might you make a password useless to a thief? Oh, two-factor authentication. Like, I extract these answers from my audience as I ask those questions to get them thinking. Okay, this is how you one foot in front of the other. How do you make a social security number useless to a thief? Well, you can engage in identity theft protection. That's one way, but that doesn't really solve the problem. So you get a credit freeze, which locks down your credit report, preventing new accounts under your name. So you walk the listener, the viewer, the audience through the process of engaging and thinking through these steps so that they, in fact, become their own CISO.
So how much pushback do you get? Like you mentioned, lock your credit report. Well, when you do that, that means that when you go and buy a car, you're not going to get an instant loan approval that second. When you go to get a new phone and sign up for the latest deal from a carrier and they do the credit check, you're not going to be able to get it done exactly that day. It's like that battle of convenience versus security. What do you see on that, and what's experience shown you with that?
So it's just a matter of putting it all into perspective. I mean, managing passwords requires a little bit of effort. Engaging in two-factor authentication requires a little bit of effort. Locking the doors to your home requires a little bit of effort. Installing a home security system and arming that system before you go to bed requires a little bit of effort. Putting your seatbelt on and then taking it off requires a little bit of effort. And so as you look at the world around us and what we engage in every day, there's a little bit of effort into pretty much everything we do. Heck, making a healthy dinner requires a little bit of effort. Getting everything done so you can get to bed requires effort. Like, all of these things require effort. When we discount security as it is purely inconvenient, therefore I'm not going to do it, it's as if you are saying, well, my physical health doesn't matter because it requires effort. My mental health doesn't matter because it requires effort. Like, all these things matter, and they should matter. And as you express and explain that, people will be like, okay, yeah, he's right. He's right. I can't deny any of that. Like, I've just been kind of, putting it off, and all of that denial, we put it off, is not because it is inconvenient. It all goes back to the root of how we view what security is,
okay,
and isn't. We define security incorrectly.
Please tell us what the right definition should be.
Okay, so when I get in front of an audience, I'm in the room. They introduce me. I get on the platform. I look out in the audience, and I've got 500 people sitting in front of me, looking at me with the scowl on their face. Okay. And they're all arms crossed, looking at me. Okay, security guy, what are you going to tell me that I don't already know? Okay. That's how it all starts. Okay. It's hilarious to me. And so I start asking them questions. How many of you, use a different passcode across multiple accounts? And I get, if I get 15% of the room raise their hand, that's a lot. 15%, which means 85% are using the same passcode. And then I say, okay, how many of you are using two-factor authentication? If I get 20%, that's a lot, which means 80% are not using two-factor authentication. And then I say, well, did you know that there's 15 billion passcodes on the dark web? And I show them, I literally show them on my computer. I show them because I've downloaded about 25 million of them. And I download and I show them, I physically show them the passwords. And they look at me and they go, oh, those poor people. I'm like, those poor people, kids, are you. Like, that's you. That's us. That's me. My information's in here. We're all in here, right? And then I start asking them additional questions to kind of like explain to them what basic 101 security is. In the physical world, security is like home security system, right? And I say, okay, so how many of you have a home security system? How many of you have a home security system? If I get 15% of the room to raise their hand, that's a lot, which means 85% don't. And then I start asking the questions, and I say to them, did you know that, like, in the United States, that, like, every year, 1.5 to 2 million homes are burglarized in the U.S. every year? And, like, they're like, I didn't know that. Like, that's like 15 to 20 million homes in the next decade. And I don't say this to, like, instill fear. I say this because this is just fact. And then I start asking questions. Okay, so I got a question. Like, that this happens. Like, it's a thing. Like, you read your police blotter and you see it happening, and like, why don't you have the home security system? And then people start raising their hands. Well, my husband says if they're going to break in, they're going to break in. I'm like, all right, like that's kind of a fatalist response, but all right, like I am going to try to make it difficult in my own life so they don't break in. So, all right, but why else don't you have one? Oh, we have insurance, as if insurance is going to protect you at 3 a.m. But the most common answer that I get, and this is where the root of the problem is, the most common answer I get is, well, we don't have a home security system because truly, I don't want to live like that. I just want to be free. I don't want to have to worry. And I hear that all the time. And as we flesh that out, what they're saying is, I don't want a constant reminder that there are bad people out there. I don't want to have to think about those things. I don't want to have to come home every night of the week and disarm an alarm system to remind me every day that there's bad people. I just want to be free.
Robert, let's translate that to a business, because one of the things that we hear about quite a bit, especially in the small, medium business space, is, you know what? It'll never happen to us. We've got nothing to take. We're good to go. And I keep thinking, well, there's a lot of suckers out there and someone's going to get stuck with this pretty badly. But we hear this all the time. They're like, why aren't you investing in cybersecurity? Well, it's just not. What are they going to take? What are they going to do? We're not a target. I'm not making this up. I'm telling you.
So we prefer to function in a level of denial that it isn't going to happen to me. Human beings engage in this process, this psychological form of denial, because risk means worry and fear and threats and anxieties. And we don't want to think about those things because it truly is uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable is not anything that anyone ever wants to do for any reason. And if there's fear and worry and upset, that is truly a human thing. And security is that. It is fear and upset and worry. People know that there are bad actors out there. They know that there are people out there that mean to do harm. But they would choose to believe that those people don't actually want to do harm against them. That's our default. We often, as adults, we function as adults in an adult world as our 5-year-old emotional selves. And I don't say that like to disparage anybody. I say that because it's kind of true. Like we deal with conflict like our 5-year-old selves. Like we don't often handle adult situations as adults. We kick and scream. We get upset. We like with the terrible 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, that's how we are often as adults. And security is one of those things that we kind of resist it because it reminds us of a time in our lives when we were physically hurt or betrayed, lied to, emotionally, distraught over something that somebody did to us. And we just avoid that stuff. Still to this very day, denial plays a big part in that. Security is fear and worry. And until we overcome that, but you can only overcome that by acknowledging it, by understanding why we resist it. And part of that is that we trust by default. And trusting by default is part of our biology. And that leads us to denial. And I'm happy to talk about that.
What? Well, let me ask you, what is the human blind spot? Yeah. Is that the blind spot?
So this is something that I've been, in 30 plus years of engaging humans in managing risk, what I come against over and over and over and over again is that we just want to and need to trust each other. And that is it. We are what is considered an interdependent species. And that means that we depend on each other for our survival. Okay. Without each other, we would fail to exist. We would fail to procreate. Okay. And the basis of being interdependent means that we need to trust each other. That is our default. So throughout the day, week, month, the people that you meet face to face, the people that email you, call you, send you a text message, by default, you give the benefit of the doubt. You want to and need to trust them, right? And the bad guys know this. They use that trust against us. They use truth in truthful scenarios to manipulate us. The human blind spot is something that I've essentially coined over the past 30 plus years, right? It is that psychological instinct to trust what we know, what is familiar to us, right? Other humans. It's that benefit of the doubt,
Yep.
which turns into the cognitive gap where biological trust overrides digital suspicion, right? Essentially leaving the door wide open for all kinds of fraud, AI deep fakes, voice cloning, just, whether it's phone, text, email, whatever it is, right? It is that biological default to trust and psychological shortcuts. These are the heuristics that criminals use to bypass human logic. Simple, right?
Sounds like they have a firmer grasp on psychology than the rest of us and human behavior.
Yeah, I don't know that we know our own selves well enough to be able to ward off how much. Look, the criminals know more about us than we do. It's as simple as that. That biological impulse is what they look at, is what they trigger, versus our intellectual understanding of what's happening to us. It's really simple.
Well, right there is cognitive dissonance between those two things.
Perfectly said. That internal conflict between our evolved survival instincts and our understanding of modern survival in all the risks, the digital risks that we face. And none of that is being effectively communicated in the majority of the training that's being provided today.
All right. So this then becomes another. There's a whole bunch of topics here. I'm trying to think where we want to go here first. But well, let's tackle the easy one, because I'm going to go with what we hear often in the field. Cybersecurity is such a problem, and it's been made so easy for people, for our identities to be stolen, and for bad things and people to exfiltrate our data. Why doesn't the government set some policy around this? And why don't they harden the environment? And again, not making this one up, totally legit from real sources. Like you were saying, social security numbers are stolen. Behavior patterns are stolen. They know more about us than we do. Can't the government step in?
Well, the government has stepped in. They have. Of course they have. You know that. I think you're just being facetious, which is fine.
Yeah.
Of course. The government has stepped in. And that boils down to compliance training. And so compliance training is the government stepping in. It's that you as an organization need to be compliant, because these are the basic levels or minimum levels of risk that you should be acknowledging. And this is what you need to do to mitigate that risk, and which means ultimately compliance training. And security fatigue is caused by what I call this compliance trap, essentially bombarding employees with complex impersonal rules that trigger security aversion. We are security averse. The compliance trap is that false sense of security felt by meeting regulatory requirements, which is not enough. It's the baseline. And while the actual human behavior remains unchanged and vulnerable. So, of course, phishing simulation training is necessary. It is. But it's like putting the cart before the horse. It's designed to fix the problem of phishing, but it fails to address the humans where they're at. And fundamentally, it doesn't really make the employee care. What sometimes happens as a result is we engage in blaming the victim, even shaming the victim. Like we do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I met a woman that just recently, 30 plus years in the mortgage finance business, fired because she couldn't pass the phishing compliance training. And many will say, well, then she should be fired because she couldn't respond to a phish. Well, maybe the training failed her. I call this like the silent failure. It's a compromise of what I also call the wetware versus software. Wetware is like human vulnerability, right? Wetware triggers no alarms, goes unreported, leads to shame, right? And the shame barrier is the emotional wall that prevents victims from reporting a breach.
Sure.
And we break this by treating mistakes as data, and it shouldn't be causes for termination. We should just look at why it is that humans still fail. And we've already discussed some of those reasons.
So Then, Robert, how do we transition from an environment where there's absolute security fatigue from the employees and even compliance fatigue to a large degree, to a place where you now have a organization that's made up of a human firewall that's truly engaged in the protection? What do you do? How do you overcome this?
Okay, so there's more than one ways to skin this cat, of course, right? As they say. But I've found that when we treat all security as being personal, as you begin with the learner, as you begin with them, like I mentioned, I walk in the room and they're all, the arms are folded, they're looking at me, hey, security guy, what it is that you're going to tell me that I don't already know? They're already apprehensive. They're apprehensive because for years, they've been engaged in compliance training, phishing simulation, which again, and I will say it over and over again, is still absolutely necessary. But if I didn't already say it, it is like putting the cart before the horse. Okay. And what that truly means is, like, let's just say you are someone who is going to go on this like massive hike across uncharted wilderness. Uncharted meaning you've never done it before,
Right?
but you have a map, and this map will show you how to get through all of this wilderness, but you've never done it before. Okay, now you can certainly pack your bag, and hopefully you have enough food and water, and hopefully you don't make any mistakes. Okay, but what if? And I think that like that map is like phishing simulation training. It's like, okay, let's give it a shot and let's see what happens and let's see who passes and let's see who fails. But what if that going on that wilderness trek was preceded by you sitting down with a guide? Not necessarily going on that journey with the guide, but sitting down with that guide who's done that before. They've been through it, like they've walked those trails, and they sit down with you and they go through that map and they say, okay, this on this particular trail right here, as you're rounding this particular corner on your left-hand side, you're going to begin to see a ridge. And as you look at that ridge, over that ridge, you're going to see like a body of water. Now you know you've made it to this point, and see it here on the map. And then once you start heading to the right, you can begin to see a fork in the road. Now, at that fork, you're going to do one of two things. And what's going to be confusing to you is this, that, and the other thing. But what you need to understand is this, and so on. So that guide is walking you through the process of what you're about to endeavor, what you're about to see, what you're about to experience. So that when you engage in that compliance training, that phishing simulation training, you understand it already. You already know what to expect. You're actually, it's been socialized within you. So it's not something that you're like, it's cold for you. You're doing phishing simulation training once a year, once every 6 months. You think that's cybersecurity? Look I think cybersecurity month is BS. What is that? Cybersecurity day, every day, like it should be every day. And so if you look at security as being very personal to the learner, right? Just hear me out for a minute. That it is the core belief that people protect what they love.
Yep.
And by teaching someone to secure, say, their own digital footprint, or even more, their child's digital footprint, you create a more secure employee at work when you make it about them. All security is personal begins with physical security, which, is preventing violence when you think about personal security, right? And then like talking to your daughter about going to college and consuming alcohol at a frat party, like statistically, like there's a high probability that she could be assaulted. And I don't know that that's a conversation that people ever have with their loved ones that they should. And it's not just talking to your daughter, it's talking about your son, about like that this could happen. And like, you really need to understand, what's appropriate and what's not, and so forth. Like these are the uncomfortable conversations that we should be having in life that we don't. And these are conversations that at some level should be introduced into this type of training. And I only say that because like most people don't know what to do at all, nor have they ever even had an opportunity to talk to an expert that this is what they do. And that CISO is that expert in this realm. Okay. And so when you engage in what I call the strategic human firewall.
Okay.
All right. Essentially, the idea behind that is that employee, that consumer, that family person, that mom, that dad, They are the firewall in their own lives in regards to risk, not just in the virtual world, but in the physical world as well. They look at their environment from the perspective of situational awareness. Like when they're walking their dog down the street, is anybody paying any unwanted attention to them? When they're getting out of their car, out of a parking garage, are they paying attention to their surroundings? When they receive that text message, do they truly understand what is happening in front of them? What the motivation might be by the person who sent that text message or that email for that matter. The strategic human firewall blocks deception. It makes you aware of that deception.
Sure. Okay.
It's a proactive governance, a mindset that turns employees from, most of us are passive targets is what we are. We're
very much so. Yes.
Right? Into an active detection layer. You're actually looking for and managing risk, like proactively. It's the shift from basically, I trust what I see because that's what I do. I trust what I see, to I verify everything. That's the goal. And that means that you shift from being this passive layer to this human sensor network. Like all your employees are now like looking for risk versus it can't happen to me. But it only changes when you challenge their belief systems, because their belief systems are such that it truly isn't going to happen to me. These things only happen to other people. I trust people. I give the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to live like that. That's where they are coming from. And you think that phishing simulation training is going to fix that problem? You've put the cart before the horse. Security awareness training, as is the way that we present it through compliance, has been around for what, 15 years?
Easily. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah.
It's relatively brand new in the human species. And we just expect people to all of a sudden grasp security when I talk to realtors, and I speak to realtors all the time, houses they sell all over the country, a lot of the times the homeowner, they don't even know where the house keys are because they've never locked their doors. And because they don't want to live like that. When you're watching the 6 o'clock news, I asked this question to the audience, and this is a question for you. You're watching the 6 o'clock news, something bad happens in a neighborhood, something truly tragic. The local news channel comes in. They have a reporter with a mic and with the camera guy behind them. And they knock on the neighbor's door, and the neighbor comes outside, and they put the microphone on her face, and the reporter says to her, "So what do you think about what happened?" What does the neighbor always say?
It's very, very unfortunate. We never had this happen in this neighborhood before.
You never thought it was going to happen here.
Yeah. We live in a nice neighborhood. And, we're seeing this even right now with that, unfortunately, with the Nancy Guthrie case, as we record this.
You never think it's going to happen here, but it does. And I don't say that because you need to worry. I say that because you need to prepare for that. And I don't say prepare for that meaning like you got to scramble. I mean, like you got to think proactively. Like you put the seatbelt on because it's the smart thing to do. You lock your doors because it's the smart thing to do. You install this home security system because it's the smart thing to do. You engage in a password manager because it's a smart thing to do. You change up your passcodes because you should do that because there's 15 billion of your passwords in the dark web. It's the smart thing to do. But they don't see any of that because no one's ever explained that to them. They've explained to them, this is what a phishing email looks like. This is what scammer grammar is. This is how you determine if it's real or fake. This is you hover over the link. You look at the email that it's coming from, how it might match up or not, if it's a 0 or an O versus where it's supposed to be an O, and so forth. It's like, all right, but they don't even lock their doors. When I get in front of a room, do you know how many times people ask me, how do I know what links are okay to click when I do a Google search?
I don't know. I don't think you get asked that often. Would you?
They ask me that every single presentation that I do, which is such a quaint, simple question.
Wow.
Because you know why? But you know why? Because people are afraid to ask that question. Because if there's a dumb question to ask, that's the one. But listen, I don't say that because it's a dumb question. I say that because people don't want to feel that they're asking a dumb question and looked at as being dumb. So people in a room where you're speaking, they're afraid to ask certain questions because they don't want to be looked upon as being ignorant. It's important when you engage in this type of training that you break it down so simply, because people feel vulnerable to begin with. We live with a lot of shame every day. And I know that what I'm saying might be like sound hokey to people, but that's who and what we are. There's a reason why we have so much strife in the world. There's a reason why there's so many mental health issues out there. We haven't addressed any of these issues effectively. And people deal with a lot of heartache and pain every single day. And I'm not saying that that's what you do in a presentation. I'm saying that you break it down in such a way where you make people feel safe. And people don't feel safe in most of the training that we provide them. And you break it down to a level where they can ask that question. You've actually affected people. You've actually made such a connection that they feel safe with you. And that's in order to change minds when it comes to security and security awareness, you need to change hearts. And I do this.
Love it.
Thank you.
I love that. You've made the cybersecurity problem tangible and personal.
Thank you.
And that is at the key of this, and that's the key to making any cybersecurity, any shift in a company, to make it a cultural shift to one where you are a cyber aware organization, is the first thing is people have to view it as something tangible, that's something they can touch, and it's something with which they are comfortable in dealing with.
Yeah.
And now they know the why. If they know the why, then the policies don't even really have to be spelled out in all, because they understand, don't do this thing. But
like I said, they walk in with their arms folded, right? And they're like, what are you going to tell me, security guy? And as you break it all down and make them feel comfortable, then what happens is they literally, the arms literally go down by their side or on their lap. Like they literally relax their physical being. They relax their body. And as they relax their body, their physical being, their heads, literally, their upper torso literally leans in. I see this every single time. And as they lean, as their arms go down and their body leans in, like now they're like, their head begins to cock a little bit. And they're like, okay. And now, like, as their arms go down, they lean in, their hands go up. Now they begin to ask questions. Now they went from, what is this guy going to tell me, to, oh, I didn't know this was going to be like this. I thought this was something different. He's talking about me. He's talking about my life. He's talking about what I worry about, my fears, my concerns, my family, my kids, my bank account, my money, my identity. Like this is not what I thought it was. And now they want to know. Now they're curious. Now they've always had questions. They've been their whole life. They've had questions. How do I know what link I'm supposed to click on Google? How do I protect my credit cards? Like that's a dumb question. But now they're asking it because now they've actually have the opportunity to speak to somebody who truly cares about them. People. As a professional communicator doing this for as long as I have, I learned decades ago that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay. And in order to get to that point in security awareness training, we need to reformat it. And the way that I've reformatted is I don't present or provide security awareness training. In none of my marketing materials, you won't see security awareness training any longer. Right? Because I've changed it, because those that are out there presenting it and providing it have ruined it. They provide fear-based, dull, dry, boring, or they've got, 10 RFID chips in their body and they're doing like a magic show. And in the end, people aren't learning anything, right? What needs to happen is we engage in what I call security appreciation. And security appreciation is the shift from awareness, which is knowing in your head, I know, to appreciation, which is caring, which is in your heart. It means something and it matters to me. And when employees appreciate how security protects their own lives, behavior changes permanently. I call this the security appreciation gap. right? It is that chasm between the employee's intellectual understanding of risk, which is awareness, and the emotional commitment to act on that knowledge, which is appreciation, right? And ultimately, this ends in what I call the kitchen table effect. And that is the multiplier effect, where successful training ends with the employee teaching the concepts to their families, cementing those lessons for life. Try doing that with phishing simulation training.
You won't get that. Phishing simulation training is a check in the box. People are going through it because they have to. But the real nuances behind phishing is something that they won't understand, and they need, which actually leads to the question of the whole, in this day and age, what are the most common social engineering tactics that you're seeing that work right now? Phishing being the biggest one, but even going beyond that.
So based on everything that we've discussed so far, for the past 30 years, I've said to my audiences at the end of every single presentation, categorically, do not worry about anything that I've said. After I've taken them through all of the security awareness, doing all these different things, looking out for all these different things, being aware of risk, two-factor authentication, managing passcodes, like I've said to them, don't worry about any of this. Just do something about it. Just do something about it. Therefore, like the worst thing you can do is doing nothing. But here's the problem. Today, right now, I am officially worried. I'm worried now. And the reason why I'm worried is because corporations have not taken the right advice. They've engaged in improper security awareness training. They've put the cart before the horse. And effectively, people are no more aware today or appreciate security today than they did 30, 40 years ago. Okay? The most dangerous form of social engineering today isn't a technical hack. It is the weaponization of things like the loneliness loophole, where 25% of us, all day, every day, we wake up, we get out of bed, we experience chronic isolation.
25%?
Google it.
I'm not going to argue it, but that's a big number. That's a lot of people. But please keep going.
That's a quarter of your workforce. Okay, 25%. Humans are designed to experience the pain and the ache of loneliness, the same way that we're designed to experience the pain and the ache of hunger pains. It's no different. It's the exact same thing. Hunger pains motivate us to forage, to find food, to satiate so that we can live another day. Okay. We have thirst so that we consume fluids, to hydrate, to live another day. We have pains of loneliness so that we would gravitate towards humans as social creatures to procreate. It's all the same thing. Okay. That said, the bad actors understand this as we don't. Okay. Loneliness is perfectly normal. It's perfectly natural, and it is a target. So with 25% of adults experiencing chronic isolation, even at work with thousands of people around them, even on social with 1,000 friends, we experience chronic isolation. Predators use AI-driven loneliness, normalizing this dialogue to simulate a community of connection that we biologically crave. That wrong number text message we get, it's about loneliness. It's about responding to somebody on the other end who sends you a picture of him or her, who engages you 6 to 8 times a day. I know this because I engage in all of those wrong number text messages. And they end up with a picture of an attractive female who texts me before I go to bed. Hey, Robert, I hope you sleep well tonight. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow morning. I wake up and there's a text message waiting for me. Good morning, Robert. I hope you slept well. What do you have going on today? And throughout the day, I'm getting text messages of her grocery shopping, what she's buying for food. She eats healthy. She's going to yoga. She takes care of her body. She's meeting with her financial advisor. She's investing in gold and crypto. And at the end of the week, hey, let's get on a WhatsApp video call together. Why? Because I want to get to know you better, which solidifies she's real and she really does want and have an interest in me. And 2 weeks later, hey, I'm making 80% of my crypto investments. How about you? Do you engage in investing? And after 2 weeks of dialogue 8 to 10 times a day, and, like she's making money and she's smart, like all that loneliness that I felt, that I forgot about, that no longer affects my life,
Yeah.
has dissipated. Now she becomes my focus. She's who I trust now. And none of that dialogue that I've already discussed had anything to do with romance. There was not even any flirtation going on there. It was purely about building rapport, purely about trust, purely about getting rid of angst and anxiety, of loneliness. It's purely about making this person, the victim, the target, feel whole. And I've met the people who are victimized. I've cried with them. I've met those people. I've met the parents, the loved ones that have lost $500,000 in these scams, thought that the person had their best interest in mind, refinanced their houses, by leading with belonging, which is what that is, rather than threats. Attackers trigger the oxytocin that releases the victim's, wetware, the software in their brain that says, this person cares about me. This chemical bond paralyzes analytical centers that, that basically trigger the human blind spot. Like it shuts that stuff down.
Yeah.
And so once the victim feels seen, once the victim feels seen, they enter a state of default to trust, making them a digital puppet. That default to trust makes them a digital puppet.
And in that instance, the MFA is not going to help them.
They bypass all that.
They're going to they bypass all of it. Because you're preying upon a foundational human need. And someone is seeing that get resolved in their life, and they don't want to go back to the way things were.
They don't want to be lonely. They don't want to feel pain. They don't want to think that bad things can happen to them.
That's incredible. I tell you what, you reframed this for me. I think that is, it's brilliant, but it's terrible.
So I've been doing this all of my life. I'm 57 years old. Truly, I've been doing this since I was 17. So truly, I've been doing this for 40 years. But let me tell you, it hasn't really, I have not come to the conclusions of the human blind spot and formulated the methodology revolving around the strategic human firewall until I really had children. And what that means is, I've got a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old. And it even chokes me up to even just talking about them. But being a dad, especially to girls, it softens you. It just does. You learn that you don't know shit. Parenting truly is the most difficult job in the world. And getting these people's lives, these children's lives, to where they don't experience strife, where they don't feel fear or worry, where they aren't regularly upset or crying, is a challenge, because the world is on fire. It's a bizarre. When we were growing up, our parents opened up the door at 7, 8 a.m. We didn't come back till 8, 9 p.m. Beaten, bloody, dirtied, scarred, filthy, and feet dirty, like nothing. We just lived our lives.
Yep.
No digital devices, no constant stimulation of bad news. Like my young daughter showed me the video of a man getting shot in the neck and blood exploding out of his neck before I saw it. It shouldn't be like that. They are consuming too much information. We're consuming too much information. We're overwhelmed. We're not designed for all of the mess that we're being, that's being shoveled at us all day long. And all of that matters. And why does it matter? It matters because look at the CIOs and the CISOs are overwhelmed. And I get that. They don't necessarily have the budget that they need to do the training that they really should put in place. And the problem is that the profession that they're in, I don't know that the profession that the security professionals are in is truly recognized as a real profession for that matter. What that means is, and just hear me out, this is important, right? Just recently I applied for a loan, and the loan that I applied for, like, it did not provide me the ability to put my employment in there. What I do for a living was not available to check on that box, because teacher, firefighter, administrator, computer programmer, nothing. There was no cybersecurity in there, is my point. And so, two things. Having children has provided me the level of empathy to understand that human beings are just worried and fearful and full of fear and overwhelmed, and that we need a different approach to security. And until we get a different approach to security, until we engage in understanding the human blind spot, overcoming, it can't happen to me, and understanding the strategic human firewall, we're never going to get to where we got to go. And until we appreciate the value that people like CISOs provide in our lives, we're never going to truly manage risk effectively, because they're never going to get the budget they want. Right now, we look at firefighters, teachers, first responders, nurses, right, as heroes. And they are. They truly are. But here's what's missing right now, okay? We don't truly see security for what it is, and here's why. What's missing from the equation is this. Every time I get off the platform, 100% of the time, someone says to me, so who's winning? The good guys or the bad guys? Who's winning? Well, of course, the good guys are winning. Of course, the good guys are winning. Because if the good guys weren't winning, you know what it would look like right now? We'd be living in the dirt. We'd have no electricity. We'd have no clean running water. We'd have no critical infrastructures. We'd have no banking system. We'd have no power to power up the gas stations so the trucks could deliver food to refrigerators and supermarkets. We'd have none of that. We'd be living like it was the 1800s. Of course, the good guys are winning. And who are the good guys? The good guys and the good gals are the CISOs. They're the CIOs, the CTOs. They're the people that are responsible for protecting us. They're the ones that are responsible for making sure that we have the quality of life that we do today. And I don't know that they get the respect that they deserve. And they are the heroes, like the first responders. They are the first responders. They are the unsung heroes. And I say all of that because I think that, like, appreciation needs to be towards them and the value that they provide. And I think that if they understood how important that they are to everything, and that they actually shifted things up a little bit and talked more about what they do and how they do it and how they see the world around them. Meaning, like, that they see that people are worried and people are afraid, that they see that, like, their own mom can't manage passcodes and their own dad is constantly getting pop-ups that he thinks is Apple and he clicks on it, that they're constantly dealing with the stuff in their own family lives. And if they communicated like that with empathy and understanding that everybody truly does not know, then I think that, like, it would completely change how they look at security too. And that the people that they're responsible for would begin to see them and even the phishing simulation training a bit differently.
Couldn't agree with you more. And Robert, we're already at the hour. And we didn't get through all the questions. But we want to leave you a minute here to plug anything you'd like our audience to know about that may be coming up. Me. So look at, this is what I do. This is how I feed the family. And it really boils down to, I'm on the road, hotels, airports, rent-a-cars, doing stuff virtually. I did a presentation for a company in California not too long ago. They are basically responsible for the backbone of 5G. If you did some digging, you'd pretty much figure out who they are. I did a presentation in front of 200 employees. And they have 4,000 employees throughout the world, right? And you say, well, can you possibly, scale this? It was easy. I spoke in an auditorium of 200 people, and they broadcasted the presentation worldwide, and those 200 people act as the voice of the 4,000 people, because we all have the same concerns. We all have the same fears and the same worries. We all have the same issues. We all wake up every single day and we got to feed the dog and get the kids off to school. And, we all have the same questions is the point. And so those 200 people in that room act as the voice of the 4,000. This is easily scalable. This is easily doable. There's no sense in continuing to put the
cart before the horse. We've got to change up the dialogue. We've got to, lead effectively. And leading effectively means essentially like backing up and engaging your fellow employees where they are in their lives. And I'm not asking a single person out there to walk up to your employees and give them a hug and hold their hand. I'm asking you to look at them a little bit differently, as the same way that you do your kids, and that they need you to guide and direct them in a way where they feel good about this and where they understand, where they're not worried, where they're not full of fear. It's as simple as that. And once you do, believe me, you will see some ROI on the efforts that you put forth.
That's brilliant, Robert. We appreciate the education, and I know our audience is going to appreciate that, and hopefully they will multiply what you have said here.
And I'm online at protectnowllc.com, protectnowllc.com.
Fantastic. Well, Robert, it's been fabulous having you here. Thanks for a great perspective on what is a very complicated problem, but you've broken it down as a people problem and made it tangible for all of us, and we can't thank you enough for that.
My pleasure.